Thanks so much for being here. We're glad you could join us today. I'm pleased to welcome you to this second informational webinar on Emissions Reduction Alberta's Methane Reduction Deployment Program with a focus on contractors and service providers. My name is Melanie, and I'm the Energy Efficiency Program Delivery Analyst at ERA. I have the pleasure to co-host this webinar with Blake Wickland, the Executive Director at Methane Emissions Leadership Alliance, or MELA for short, who will also be with us to answer your questions during the live Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Before we start, it's important for us to acknowledge the privilege of living, working, and investing on traditional territories, which includes Treaty 6, Treaty 7, Treaty 8, Otipemisiwak Métis Government of Métis Nation, Inuit, First Nations, and all others who live and care for these lands. We are dedicating to promoting a culture of collaboration and meaningful engagement. Before we dive into today's agenda, I'll quickly cover a few housekeeping items to help us make the most of our time together. We're excited to have over 100 attendees registered today. So to keep things running smoothly, all microphones are currently muted to prevent any background noise. We encourage you to share your questions at any time during the webinar using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And for the best viewing experience, you can switch to full screen mode by clicking the arrow icon in the top right corner of your screen. If you encounter any technical challenges related to the webinar connection, you can contact our technical support specialist, Sophie, at sashworth@eralberta.ca. But don't worry if you can't resolve your issue today, or if you need to leave early. The recording of this webinar will be posted on ERA's website, as well as our YouTube page shortly after the live session. Today's session builds on our first informational webinar and is focused on giving you practical, contractor-specific guidance. We'll begin by discussing why methane reduction matters and the important role partnerships play in achieving meaningful emission reductions. From there, we'll dive into the key elements of the program, upcoming deadlines, eligible requirements, and the application process, while highlighting what's most important for contractors to know and share advice on preparing strong applications. We'll be sure to set aside time to answer your questions during the live session. And if we are unable to get to your question today, we encourage you to follow up with us afterwards. With that, let's get started. We know that methane is a potent greenhouse gas, more than 28 times stronger than carbon dioxide over a 100-year period. Alberta recognized early that methane reduction is one of the fastest and most cost-effective way to reduce emissions, and it has taken concrete, measurable action for decades. The province was the first oil and gas producing jurisdiction to put requirements on emissions from flaring, starting in the early 90s. And the first regional government in North America to set a methane reduction target for the oil and gas sector. Since then, Alberta has reduced methane emissions from the conventional oil and gas sector by 52% since 2014. Technology funding helped prevent 17 million tons of emissions from being released, and these achievements didn't happen by accident. They are the result of strong collaboration. Governments, industry, and service providers have worked together to turn strategy into measurable results, and the Methane Reduction Deployment Program is building on that success, continuing the story of innovation, partnership that has made Alberta a leader in methane reduction. Speaking about partnerships, I will now pass it over to Blake, who will provide an overview of MELA.
Thanks, Melanie. The Methane Emissions Leadership Alliance, or MELA, is a not-for-profit organization consisting of service and technology providers with the common goal of strengthening our valued industry through methane emissions reduction. I'll be working alongside Modern West Advisory and ERA to help deliver the methane reduction deployment program through business development and industry outreach. Really happy to be here today to talk about the program and more specifically what it means for contractors. As someone that's spent over 26 years in the industry as a service provider, I'm very excited for the opportunities this will bring to everyone. I will now pass it back to Melanie to provide an overview of ERA and the Methane Reduction Deployment Program.
Thanks, Blake. Very happy to have you here as well. Before we dive into the program details, I'll just take a quick moment to ground us in what ERA does and why we exist. ERA works alongside the Government of Alberta as a delivery partner, and for some programs, we also receive federal funding that helps leverage this provincial funding. Since 2009, Alberta's industrial carbon pricing system has generated funding that ERA reinvests directly back into the economy, supporting projects that cut emissions while strengthening competitiveness. ERA's traditional funding calls focus on reducing the risk of adopting new technologies, supporting projects at that crucial stage between research and commercialization. Beyond that, ERA also designs and delivers energy efficiency incentive programs like the Methane Reduction Deployment Program to help full commercial technologies scale and achieve real-world impact. At the core of our work is a simple goal: supporting a low-emissions Alberta economy that continues to grow sustainably and create economic opportunities. As a not-for-profit organization, we focus on using public dollars efficiently to deliver meaningful value for Albertans, both economically and environmentally. ERA has a strong history of backing technologies that deliver real measurable methane reductions. Over the years, these investments have helped move innovative solutions out of the lab and into the field, tools that operators and service providers are now using across Alberta and beyond. In total, ERA's methane portfolio includes more than 50 funded projects through funding calls, representing $120 million in investments. These projects span the full innovation pathway and reflect extensive collaboration across Alberta's innovation ecosystem, including partners like PTAC, Alberta Innovates, and NGIF. Together, these efforts have helped create over 2,800 jobs, and the technologies supported through this portfolio are expected to reduce emissions in Alberta by 4.3 million tons by 2030. And with large-scale exports, the potential impact beyond the province could be twice as high. Besides traditional funding calls, ERA also designs and delivers energy efficiency programs to drive commercialization and adoption further. Through the Energy Savings for Business, or ESB, closed in 2024, ERA invested $13 million, supporting over 90 projects focused on methane reduction. Building on this strong foundation, ERA is now moving into the next phase. With $22.4 million from the Tier Fund, the Methane Reduction Deployment Program has been launched in November 2025 in close collaboration with our program implementer, Modern West Advisory, and our industry partner, Mila. Through this program, we expect to support approximately 100 projects, accelerate deployment of proven solutions, and continue cutting methane emissions, with contractors and service providers playing a crucial role in delivering these outcomes. ERA's new Methane Reduction Deployment Program has been designed to help Alberta-based owners and operators of upstream and midstream oil and gas facilities deploy proven technologies that detect, reduce, and quantify methane emissions. The goal is to reduce these emissions, improve efficiency, and prepare operations for future regulatory requirements. Through a competitive process, ERA selected Modern West Advisory, a carbon accounting and markets consulting firm located in Calgary and operating worldwide, to support the implementation of this program. And Modern West Advisory team, led by Zainab Dadashi and Maren Blair, is striving to provide the most seamless experience possible to participants and eligible contractors alike. Now, here's the deal. This $22.4 million program is open until March 31st, 2029, or until funding is fully allocated. Funding covers up to 50% of eligible project costs, with up to 1 million per project. To ensure broad participation, there is also a 1 million cap per parent company. And you should know that ERA may adjust funding requirements over time based on program uptake. The actual minimum funding request is $25,000. This helps ensure that program funds and administration resources are used efficiently. To be eligible, facilities must be legally operating in Alberta and must not be regulated under tier unless part of an aggregate facility, and must meet all program eligibility requirements for sure. With that, I will now pass it back to Blake, who will provide an overview of what it means to be an eligible contractor under this program, as well as how to register in the online application portal. Blake, over to you.
Thanks, Melanie. While the participants are the organizations applying for funding from the program, the eligible contractors, in my opinion, are absolutely essential to the execution and success of the projects. For this program, you basically need to think of eligible contractors as any company other than the participant that will be providing work within the project. Service providers such as electric and instrumentation, as well as mechanical companies, technology providers, or distributors and engineering firms are all eligible contractors within the program and will be selected as partners during the participants' application process. It's a bit of a change in terminology, as many of these companies would not necessarily consider themselves contractors on a daily basis, but for the purposes of defining the program, and the term contractor uses this meaning. To become an eligible contractor, simply register in the portal, and in the process, review the contractor code of conduct as well as the program terms and conditions. You will then show up on a list where the organization can be selected by participants. During this registration process, you're also able to provide contact information for your company if you would like it to be available to participants who may be looking through the directory for contractor partners. Though you are not required to provide any documentation during this process, you will be required to attest to the fact that documents such as an Alberta business license, WCB clearance letter, insurance coverage, and an active GST number are available and will be provided upon request. Please note that there will be an active auditing process, so most or all eligible contractors will receive this request at some point during the program. Contractors should be aware of the program guidelines and terms and conditions. Please refer to those documents available on the program's website. As such, to be eligible, projects must be applied for by an upstream or midstream company legally authorized to conduct business in Alberta, be it a site which is either not regulated by tier or is part of an aggregate facility as defined within tier, have started on or after January 1, 2025, consist of locations located within the same economic region of Alberta and of the same eligible technology category. We'll get into these a bit later. And finally, be completed on or before the defined project completion date, which is 2 years from the approved application and no later than March 31st of 2029. Eligible costs within the program can be found in detail on the program website or in the project cost guide, but I'll go over a few of the details for you. Costs must be incurred no earlier than November 12th, 2025, and no later than March 31st, 2029. These costs can include things like front-end engineering and design, which can include items such as process engineering, instrumentation design, electrical engineering, 3D modeling, and CAD work, among others. This cannot exceed 10% of the total project costs. Participant internal expenses such as administration, project management, and other overhead costs are eligible. This cannot exceed 15% of total project costs. Other costs include project equipment, which refers to the eligible technology being installed, construction equipment, such as rental equipment, heavy lifting, excavation equipment, transportation, and other equipment required for project-related tasks. Construction labor, which is defined as third-party expenses related to human effort and skills to complete tasks within the scope of the project. This can include engineering costs, transportation, construction, and installation costs. Repair or refurbishment of engines or VRUs for use in a project as a new install. Costs that are not eligible for funding include repair or refurbishment of existing equipment or used equipment, with the exception of VRUs and engines, as I stated previously. Work to modify the facility outside of what is required for the project. Aesthetic improvements. Operation, maintenance, or upkeep of the equipment. Regulatory approvals, post-project verification or commissioning. Security. IP protection. Internal labor or installation costs incurred by the participant. And there's a few more. They can be found in the project cost guide. So please refer to the project cost guide for all of the official project cost guidelines. Now we'll take a look at the eligible technologies for the program. As a whole, the eligible technologies for this program are commercially available, reduce methane emissions, and are TRL 8+. There are currently no specific funding amounts tied to a specific technology type. However, we may need to apply incentive caps to specific technology types to ensure a broad range of technology uptake if necessary. Projects can be aggregated at multiple locations within the same economic region using multiple subcategory technologies, as long as they fall under the same technology type category. An example of this would be aggregating multiple locations around the Edson area, where you would be installing electric instrumentation, instrument air, and electric pumps, as they all fall under technology type C. Now, let's go through the categories of eligible technologies. Type A, methane slip from engine operations, is focused on the reduction of unburned methane in natural gas engines. This can be achieved in many ways, including the optimization of the engine, rebuilding or retrofitting, or treating the exhaust. Type B is routine venting from tanks and compression. This category has two main focus areas: destruction and conservation. Think of this if you are simply destroying the methane, or if you'll be doing some work with the methane, such as supplementing fuel to a piece of equipment. Type C, pneumatics. Electrification of instruments or pumps, instrument air or nitrogen conversions, vent gas capture for destruction or conservation, removal of bleeding devices, and hydraulic, electrohydraulic, and gas under oil conversion all fit into this category. Type D, surface casing vent flow. This is downhole solutions, less than 300 meters cubed per day, and capture solutions fit in this category. Type E is casing gas capture, which casing gas capture for either destruction or conservation. Type F is an interesting one to me, which is digital solutions. This includes advanced process control, optimization, use of machine learning or AI to reduce methane emissions. I'm quite excited to see what we get in this category. And then type G is kind of our catch-all category, the other category. This is a one for the rest of the technologies that might not fit into those other categories, but are commercially available, TRL 8+, and reduce methane emissions. High slippage from catalytic heaters, heater optimization, electricity generation from captured gas, solution gas management all fit in this category. There's also a new eligible technology application form available if a project has a technology that is commercially available, ready for deployment, but it doesn't include or isn't included, in any of these categories. So what about the technologies that are not listed? If you have that technology that doesn't fall under those TRL 8+, don't worry. It's still considered, like I said before. You simply have to fill out the new eligible technology application within the project. The application walks you through the eligibility criteria and what supporting information is needed. If everything checks out, the technology gets added to the eligible technologies list. Keep in mind, all eligible technologies must reduce methane emissions to qualify. That's really key in this. In practice, the technology provider registers as a contractor, and their deployment partner, an eligible upstream or midstream operator, registers as a participant to receive funding for installing the eligible technology once it's approved. For questions regarding eligible project types or the submission of eligible technology applications, proponents may contact support@mrp-deployment.ca. Technologies seeking support at earlier stages of development, including pilot or demonstration scale projects, are encouraged to explore funding opportunities through the NGIF's demonstration stream, subject to its eligibility criteria and submission deadline of January 31st at 7 p.m., only a couple days from now. We've told you what's eligible for the program, but what's out of scope? We've made every effort possible to include as many different sources and technologies as we could while still maintaining the highest level of integrity and achieving the best possible methane reduction results. With that being said, we have excluded methane slip from flaring, which includes incomplete combustion, unlit and intermittent flares, captured gas flaring to an existing flare, or the addition of any new flare stacks is not eligible. Due to regulatory requirements, the replacement of compressor seals has been deemed out of scope, along with measurement, monitoring, and mitigation technologies that only detect or monitor without physically contributing to an emission reduction. Spills, ruptures, desanders, and LDAR work is also excluded. Next up, we're going to show a few videos on how to navigate the available program information as well as get signed up as an eligible contractor.
To begin the process of registering for the Methane Reduction Deployment Program, first, go to the Emissions Reduction Alberta website and click on the Efficiency Programs button. Next, click on the banner for the Methane Reduction Deployment Program. Here, you will find the landing page for the program that contains information and links that will be valuable to anyone interested in participating. Navigating to the resources page allows you to download documents such as the program guide, terms and conditions, eligible technologies, contractor code of conduct, cost guide, and more. Next, a list of frequently asked questions is available to help interested parties, participants, and contractors who are seeking clarity on the program. Scrolling through the main landing page also provides information, including a program launch video, informational webinar, and much more. If you are ready to register for the program, please click on the Register/Login button to navigate to the portal. Before you create or join a company, you will register as a user. During this process, you will be required to provide information such as your email address, name, title, and cellular number. Please note that you will need to use the email that you wish to use within the program, and the cellular number must be able to receive text messages for two-factor authentication. The password must be a minimum of 8 characters and include a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols. Next, you agree to the terms and conditions and click on Create Account. You will now receive an email from the portal requesting that you confirm the registered email address. Once confirmed, you will be directed back to the portal homepage and will log in using the email and password you created during registration. Finally, you will be directed to the two-factor authentication page and receive a text message with the 6-digit code. Companies such as service and technology providers, engineering and consultants that wish to work with participants within the Methane Reduction Deployment Program must be registered as eligible contractors. Once you have registered as a user and are logged into the portal, you can now either create or join an eligible contractor. To create an eligible contractor, first click on the Create Contractor button. Next, fill out the eligible contractor application form. Here, you will fill in details such as the company legal name, head office address, and business type. You will then enter the type of technology or services you offer based on the eligible technology categories within the program. You may click one or more check boxes, or if applicable, you may click on the All button at the bottom to select all of the available technologies. Select the economic regions within Alberta that your business operates within, or select all if applicable. If your company provides a technology not listed in the eligible measures, please select Yes. Otherwise, select No. You may now accept the eligible contractor code of conduct and privacy policy, as well as confirm that your company meets and can provide the listed criteria upon request. Your company will now show as pending approval and then approved once reviewed by the program team. Once approved, you will be able to access the References section of the portal. Here you will find a contractor toolkit that includes program-branded templates for use on social media. This section also includes a variety of workbooks and guides. By navigating to your home page, you may now invite additional users to the company or edit company details.
After registering as an eligible contractor, you're now able to participate in both the application and execution of projects within the program. Needless to say, the big benefit of this is the additional work it can generate for your business, as well as giving your BD team some topics of discussion for interactions with clients and other contractors. In my experience, the relationships between service providers and technology providers are absolutely invaluable, and I highly recommend building out these mutually beneficial relationships with others registered in the program. We've decided to make it easy for participants and contractors alike to form these partnerships using the eligible contractor directory. When logged into the portal, users can browse approved contractors participating in the program in the directory, contact contractors who have added their contact information, which is an optional input that you can add at any time. The list is growing. We have over 50 contractors companies registered in the portal as of today. On this slide, you can see what the participant journey through the program from registration to completion looks like. It's the goal of the entire program team to make this process as seamless as possible while ensuring that we protect the integrity of the program. With that being said, the pre-application process can be very quick and only requires the team to do a quick review for eligibility purposes. The application process is more data intensive. However, with the completion of the documentation required and the inclusion of all requested backup documents, applications can be processed in 5 business days. At any time, if you have questions about the process or the required data, please reach out to the program team or to myself. With that, I'll pass it back to Melanie to go through some of the frequently asked questions. Then we'll get into the Q&A portion of the webinar.
Thanks so much, Blake. Before we get into our Q&A session, we wanted to highlight that following the webinar today, we will update our FAQ on the program website with the most relevant questions we've received. On this slide, we have also provided a summary of the most common questions we've received so far. So first, a common question we hear is about registration roles. Do service providers need to register as contractors? And do their clients need to register as participants in order to apply? The short answer is yes. Service providers must register and be approved as eligible contractors under the program in order to support projects. Once approved, contractors can assist participants with preparing applications. However, the participant, which is the facility owner or operator, is responsible for submitting the application and managing all contractual obligations. It's important to note that project applications can only be submitted by registered participant, again, the owner or operator of an oil and gas facility. Second, another common question is whether projects need to go beyond legal requirements to qualify. The simple answer is yes. Projects must result in methane emissions reductions that go beyond current regulatory requirements. Activities undertaken solely to meet compliance obligations are not eligible for funding. If a project includes both compliance-driven activities and additional voluntary emissions reductions, these projects are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Third, we are often asked about stacking limits within the program. So participants may stack funding from other programs. However, the total funding received cannot exceed 100% of the total eligible project cost. Participants are also required to disclose any other funding sources as early as possible during the application process. So far, we've touched on the program characteristics, eligibility criteria, and how to register to become an eligible contractor. It is now time for you to ask any questions you have. Please type your question into the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. Blake and Luca, our Efficiency Program Delivery Director at ERA, are here to answer your questions. So let's dive right in. Luca, the first one is for you. We have attendees from outside Alberta, like BC and Saskatchewan, who would like to know in what ways could applicants or facilities outside of Alberta join the Methane Reduction Deployment Program, or MRDP for short?
Thanks, Melanie. The MRDP is limited to facilities located in Alberta. So one way facilities outside of Alberta can benefit from the program is to review the success stories and metrics we will make publicly available on our website. These learnings and outcomes should be applicable to other jurisdictions in Canada and beyond. That said, if you're a technology provider or contractor outside of Alberta, you can participate in our program as long as the technology that's being deployed is at a facility located in Alberta.
Thanks, Luca. The second question is also for you. How are methane reduction solutions evaluated when they not only eliminate emissions, but also recover resources, integrate carbon and waste heat recovery, or deliver measurable operational and economic value, especially when a deployment partner is ready to collaborate and scale solutions that align with these program objectives?
Yeah, I mean, to summarize, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. So projects that go beyond eliminating methane emissions are going to be especially valuable as they will help us demonstrate how our program has gone above and beyond methane mitigation. In terms of evaluation, MRDP requires at a minimum that all projects result in reduced methane emissions.
Awesome, thank you. The third question will be for Blake. How long does the process take to become an approved contractor? What if the technology does not align with the eligible technologies list?
Yeah, we went over this briefly in the presentation as well, but the sign-up process to become an eligible contractor only takes about 5 to 10 minutes at the most. If your technology does not immediately fit into the list, there's always that other category where you can indicate you have a technology not yet listed. The participant would then submit an application for new technology in the portal with the support of the eligible contractor. Please reference the new technology application guide on the portal for more information about this.
Thanks, Blake. And we've also touched on this during the webinar, but to be sure to address this question, can you tell us again, how can contractors get visibility on other contractors to assemble comprehensive solutions?
You know, this would typically be done from the participant side of things within the scope of the project, as they would be putting together the fulsome application. With that being said, though, organizations such as MELA are a great place for service and technology providers to collaborate and form partnerships. You can also use that directory that we showed during the videos and when I was talking as well to look at other eligible contractors and how you could work together.
Awesome. That's right, we try to make it easy to create partnerships. Our next question for you, Blake, is who is responsible for the applications and document submission?
Project applications must be submitted by the participant, meaning the facility's owner or operator that will receive funding, which is responsible for initiating and submitting the project application. These are midstream and upstream oil and gas companies in Alberta. However, during the application process, participants may identify eligible contractors that they're working with. Participants may also invite eligible contractors to collaborate on the application at any time. This will allow the eligible contractors to submit supporting information required for the project.
Excellent. Luca, now building on the last question, is it possible to include multiple technologies in one application?
Thanks, Melanie. Yeah, it is possible, but a separate application must be submitted for each parent technology type. You can submit one application for multiple technologies if they are under the same technology type. So giving you an example, you can submit one application that includes both pneumatic electrification and pneumatic device vent gas capture, given that both technologies are under the same parent technology. So in this case, that would be pneumatics. On the other hand, if you have a storage tank vapor recovery project and an advanced process control and optimization project, you'll need to submit two applications as the projects have different parent technology types. So in this case, routine venting and digital solutions. Please also note that multiple sites could be included in one application, but that's only if the parent technology type is being installed at each site and all sites fall within the same economic region within Alberta.
Thank you, Luca. So key words to remember, same economic region and same parent technology type. There's a question about eligibility for past ERA funding recipients. So Luca, I'll pass this one to you as well. If an applicant participated in our other ERA funding program, does that disqualify them if they have exceeded the maximum funding limit?
Thanks. Yeah, I guess it depends. So past recipients are eligible for funding for the MRDP only if their project is distinct from work that was previously funded by ERA. So just for clarity there, we do have different funding calls. So we just want to make sure that if you receive funding through one of those different calls, that it's not overlapping with the funding you're receiving in MRDP.
Well understood. Now, let's talk a bit more about the application process. Blake, how can a participant or eligible contractor draft a proposal that will be successful when they compare to other proposals?
So just to be really clear on this part, the program is not a competition between proposals. Each proposal is evaluated by the team individually, and the success is really based on the quality of the proposal and the project being proposed. The program is also a first come, first served program, so timing is very critical to ensure you're able to participate. Don't hold on for too long. All that to say, please provide a complete, high-quality proposal that includes all of the information and backup details that are requested in the portal to ensure your application is successful. Just try to be as high quality as you can possibly be.
Good advice. And can you tell us what does the QA/QC take on average for each application submission?
If all of the information is provided and there's no clarifications required, the team can really turn around an application in 5 business days. If the information is not correct or provided in full, or there's further information needed, then the application will be turned around to the participant and will require an additional 5 business days for review once received back again.
So quality really matters and can fasten the process. Now, Luca, we've received a question about the expectations on timeline of delivery, the use of funds, and inclusion of software tools development in the program. Can you speak to this, please?
Yeah, definitely a couple of questions there. But for the first one, so all projects must be completed within 2 years of the participant agreement execution date. So that means when it's been signed, or by March 31st, 2029, whichever comes first. For the second question, for software tools, so advanced process control and optimization, as well as emerging artificial intelligence / machine learning tools are eligible. But please note that software must go beyond identification of methane emissions and must actually result in reducing those emissions.
Thanks, Luca. I have another question for you. What are the exact reporting obligations, and are they kept confidential? What exactly will be publicized out of this program?
Yeah, great question. And it's one that we get frequently. So we collect and publicly report key outcomes. So this is data such as emissions reductions, job creation, and this is for all our funded projects on an aggregated basis. Public reporting of outcomes and learnings is required in order for ERA to satisfy its accountability obligations to the government of Alberta. Application details are kept confidential on a permanent basis.
Thank you, Luca. Moving on to a technology-specific question. So, Blake, can hydrogen generation blend into natural gas count as a reduction? How about hydrogen power offsetting power made by natural gas turbines?
Blending could qualify. However, just like every other technology, it must result in a reduction of methane emissions, not a reduction of other emissions. So there can be some added benefits in there, but the key is that it needs to directly reduce methane emissions. Hydrogen power offsetting other power would not qualify.
Excellent. Another question for you, Blake. Are emissions monitoring tools or mobile unit eligible for funding?
Measurement and monitoring equipment like drones must be paired with permanent methane reduction technology to qualify. Mobile units on their own are generally not eligible unless the equipment remains installed at the facility with the methane reduction solution.
And we have a related question, Blake, if you can expand on this one. If a technology provider has a commercially available piece of technology but wishes to include an emerging technology into that solution for the purpose of applying to the program, would this be eligible?
This one's a bit of a gray area. If the emerging portion is not TRL 8 plus, then I would assume this places the entire solution at a lower TRL. However, I think that would also depend on the history of use of the emerging tech and how it integrates into the solution. Keep in mind that there must be a direct methane emission reduction attributed to any eligible technology within the program. Given the ability to apply to the program with an unlisted technology, we are very open to discussing this further to see how it may or may not fit, and also happy to make an introduction to the team at NGIF if the technology appears to be below TRL 8.
Thanks. Yes, and we invite everyone to contact us if they have very specific questions like this. Very open to discussion. Now, Luca, let's address this next question in two parts. A, for projects that reduce methane through beneficial use, such as on-site power generation using produced gas, how does ERA evaluate eligibility and emissions reduction impact compared to traditional methane abatement technologies?
Yeah, so power generation from produced gas would not be eligible. However, power generation or fuel supplementation using vented gas would be eligible. It's important to keep in mind here that it's not a competition between different technologies in terms of evaluation purposes. What we're really trying to do here is just make sure that we evaluate the technologies to ensure that they're eligible. That's the key component.
And for the next part of this question, for technology providers acting as contractors rather than asset owners, what role does ERA expect them to play in the application process, and how early should they be engaged with operators to be competitive?
Yeah, I would say maybe to answer the last part of that question first, earlier rather than later is always the best strategy. Technology providers can support participants with the submission of their applications if the participant decides they want to provide access. So this would allow you to provide technical details and spec sheets in the application as applicable.
Thank you, Luca. Moving on to our next questions. I will direct this one to Blake. How long does it typically take for a contractor's intake registration to go from pending approval to approval?
This one is normally very quick. We're talking within minutes or hours. Obviously, timing is critical to that one as well. If you submit an application at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, then it's going to be a couple of days. But the program team monitors all of these applications and usually gets back within minutes or hours.
Perfect. So we can expect in one or 2 business days maximum. Pretty quick. Next question for you as well. Will there be a cap on the total number of contractors within the program?
No. The more the merrier, quite honestly. I want to see a lot of contractors get in on the program. I think it benefits everybody, participants and contractors included. So no cap.
Thank you, Blake. Next question for Luca. Does ERA consider projects where methane reduction is achieved indirectly? For example, through power generation that displaces flaring or enables electrification? And how is that emissions impact typically quantified for funding process? So it's a long question. Let's start with the first part. Does ERA consider projects where methane reduction is achieved indirectly?
Trying to think through an example, which is maybe a little bit difficult on the spot. I think for this specific situation, what I would recommend is just reaching out to us with potentially the project details for what you're considering, and then we can evaluate that and provide you some more feedback based on that information.
Thanks, Luca. That seems like a mix of technology. So very happy to continue the discussion. Please reach out to us. The next one for Blake, please. Do you think projects focused on reducing landfill volume and as a result lowering emissions from organic waste would qualify under this program?
No, unfortunately, this program is focused on upstream and midstream oil and gas producers. So right now, landfill would not qualify.
Maybe in a subsequent program. Blake, another one for you. To confirm, technologies that enable indirect emissions reduction, example, software or digital technologies, are not eligible unless combined with mitigation technology.
I would really encourage reaching out to the team on this one. Like I said earlier, the digital solutions are a little bit tougher to really say, this was a direct or an indirect reduction. So, I don't want to say yes or no right now. I think it does need to lead to the reduction of methane, not just the identification of methane. But yeah, just reach out to myself or the team. We're happy to have a discussion around that.
Thank you, Blake. The next one will be for Luca. Can you clarify the exclusions for tier-regulated facilities, please?
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to speak to that. And maybe just for future reference as well, I think we may have mentioned it earlier on in the presentation, but we do have an FAQ page on our website that covers, in more detail some of these questions that are being asked. But to summarize, that you can be an aggregated facility under tier to participate, but all other facilities that are regulated under tier are ineligible. And on the FAQs, we also go into details about how we deal with offset credits as well, which ties into tier as well. So if you have any more questions on that, please refer to our website.
Thank you. And yes, the FAQ will be updated with your questions. So if any clarification needs to be made, You will see the update on our website in the coming week. Blake, I have two questions for you here. We have two technologies focused on emissions reduction. Is there a limit on how many technologies we can submit for applications for?
So there's no limit on how many different technologies can be submitted. Even one contractor could have many different technologies. Just keep in mind though that the contractors are not the ones submitting the applications. That has to be the participants, which are only upstream and midstream oil and gas producers.
Thanks for the clarification. Very specific question for you, Blake, on the application workbook. So we say that the workbook asks for methane and CO2 emissions for base case and new technology case. If they don't have an actual measurement, what the expectations are, and can we use a vendor specific or online reference?
Yeah, using published references on that would be really key. So, what we wouldn't want to see is just a, kind of a made up number there. We would want to see some sort of reference, whether that is from a vendor or a published piece of data that shows maybe some emission factors for that. In certain projects, such as methane slip, there will be a requirement for physical testing as well in many cases. So just keep that in mind. But you can use, these references and other published documents to do the application.
Perfect. And the next question is a follow-up questions on that. We kind of touched this already, but Blake, could you please clarify the program's expectations regarding acceptable data sources again, please?
Yeah. Again, just kind of what I said in the last with the last part there. We just want, published data. It's got to be something that is publicly available. It needs to be in a document that is recognized. I think for the most part, the quantification guides really highlight the data sources that could be required. And keep in mind that the testing piece is an eligible cost within the program too. So if you do need to do some testing to get those numbers, the costs are caught in the program.
Perfect. And with that, I don't see any other questions. So thank you everyone for sharing your questions. We hope this was helpful. And thank you, Blake and Luca, for addressing those questions as well. With that, our webinar is drawing to a close. If you have remaining questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to methane@eralberta.ca, and we'll be happy to follow up with you directly. We encourage you to visit the program website at eralberta.ca/methane, where you'll find the program guidelines, RFAQ, and other helpful resources. We then invite you to register through the program portal to begin your journey, and we look forward to collaborate with you soon. As a final note, stay tuned for the upcoming Carbon Copy podcast episode, where Blake and Luca discuss about how this methane reduction deployment program acts as a bridge between government policy and field operations, and why the time to modernize is now. The podcast will be released in early February on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Amazon Music, and ERA's YouTube page. Happy listening. Thank you for joining us today and have a wonderful day.